Good morning, folks. Reporting to you from the Amazon rainforest. You can see I got a couple solar panels up on the roof over there. And here I got the electronics hooked up. It's a kind of incomplete system. I'll tell you what it's missing in a couple minutes, but let's take a look at the batteries down here. Working with 6-gauge electrical cable is kind of annoying. Anyways, these are two 100 amp hour lead acid batteries. I chose lead acid because they're cheap and easily available here. I do want to eventually move up and upgrade to nickel iron batteries, which are much more environmentally friendly than the lithium ion and lithium iron phosphate batteries. Not to mention they're rated to last 30 years, and they often last 50 to 100 years. You can search for the Edison battery to find out more information about those kinds of batteries. There is some misinformation about them online, but I'm sure you can easily cut through that with your discerning mind, right? Got a little control panel for the, oh, this is blurry. A little control panel for the charge controller, and another one for the inverter. I can turn it on and off if I want. I'm actually not using the inverter most of the time. Fuse box for 12 volt stuff like the light I have up there. So obviously if you're using 12 volt stuff, it's a lot more efficient than using the inverter with 120 volt stuff. Hey, it works. So it's kind of ridiculous to be using an inverter all the time when half your stuff runs DC. Like your laptop and your iPad and everything, they all charge DC. So I convert it to AC and then back to DC. This is the charge controller. Let's see if I can actually get it to show the screen in this light here. No, it's not going to show you the screen on the iPoop camera. So anyways, it's telling me right now that the batteries, the solar panels are charging at 20.3 volts. The battery is 22 degrees centigrade, not overheating, and then it's 100% capacity. That's pretty cool. The inverter, giant, massive 3,500 watt inverter, which is not on right now because, like I said, I'm not using it. And then a bunch of cables. Now, what is it missing? Well, it's missing a low voltage cutoff for the batteries. Very important, so you don't reduce your battery life. And it automatically shuts it off when it gets below a certain voltage, like below 12 volts, for example. Someone's bringing one of those down from the U.S. in a couple weeks, so I can hook it up. It's also missing a circuit breaker for the batteries themselves, so I can shut off the battery easily, and so it doesn't draw too much current. And I'm going to install that when I install the low voltage cutoff. And here we have a fuse box for the solar panels. I got a fuse box, not a circuit breaker, because fuses are way cheaper, and I don't expect it to ever break. And each of these pop open to reveal a fuse inside. Positive, negative. Probably not necessary to have both. But this is basically so that if your charge controller malfunctions, it can send all the excess battery current up to the solar panels, right? And that would obviously damage the solar panels, and then they would never work again. You would lose all your solar panels. So just some little circuit frying inside the Chinese electronics, and you've lost all your solar panels. So to protect that, I put a fuse box for the solar panels. It's always a good idea to put fuses for your panels. And don't be lazy. Low voltage cutoff for your batteries, a circuit breaker for the batteries as well. Keep everything safe and sound. Alright, so now that I have this put in, I'm going to put in some more lights, 12 volt DC lights. I'm going to get the internet put in, and I'm going to attempt to get a 12 volt DC adapter for the router, so I don't have to run that off of the inverter. Another thing I should mention here, you might notice that the 12 volt batteries are wired in parallel, so I have a 12 volt system, not a 24 volt system. And the common conventional wisdom is that 24 volt systems are always better. Well, that's not always the case. There's one reason why you might want to have a 12 volt system, right? Because the common wisdom says, well, you can have a 24 volt system, and then when you need to run 12 volt stuff, you simply have a little step down transformer, and that's it. Well, for me, it's not about when I need to, on the rare occasion that I might need to run 12 volt stuff. I'm planning on running 12 volt stuff all the time. I'm planning on nearly all the time having 12 volt stuff and hardly ever having to use the inverter, except when I'm using a power tool or something, right? So, for me, having some crappy Chinese step-down transformer from Amazon, even if I ordered a good one, it's a failure point that I don't need. And the fact that it's going to be heating, is it going to handle all the current that I'm going to draw from it? Well, I need multiple of them. In this case, since I'm actually planning on running nearly everything 12 volts and only occasionally using the inverter, then in my case, it's better to use a 12 volt system. For people who are using the inverter most of the time and only occasionally running a 12 volt thing, then a 24 volt system is better. Wiring your batteries in 24 volts or making your own batteries and getting a 24 volt inverter. That's all I had to say for now, folks. By the way, this is wired all funky because I actually only had a very short length of 6-gauge wire to plug into this, and I didn't feel like buying more, so I just made it all janky. I figure when I get more wire, I'll hook it up nice and it'll look more pretty. Look forward to another video in a few weeks when I get the low voltage controller and everything. Oh, and the other thing it's missing is a ground rod. It needs to be grounded. So when I get everything hooked up and it's totally complete, I'll make another video explaining it in more detail.